I noticed when I first started out making paper pieces, I was thinking, what color should I do this? And I thought, what am I doing? This isn't fun. I'm thinking. And I find thinking in the studio to be really destructive. I'm not speaking for artists. I'm just speaking for myself. I think I basically do what I am. And I think that it's a way of unraveling, painting is a way of unraveling the mystery of self. Through painting, I think you draw yourself into the moment. I think what you do is what you are. I've told my children, when you are excited about something, pay attention to that. This is important. And it's an abstraction, enthusiasm. It's an abstraction. And as soon as you're excited as a child, you know, your parents are the first ones to get uncomfortable. In particular, if they don't know what it's about. Pay attention to those signs, because those are doors opening, and you have to go through those doors. That's how you organize your destiny. It's goddamn fleeting. I think that you witness an enormous amount of hope and optimism, as well as a fierce awareness of the savage nature of people. You can't have one without the other. You know, that's what Jacob's ladder is, isn't it? You got your head in the heavens, but you know, you're trudging through the waist-deep decay. I'm pleased with what I bring to the table. If I wouldn't be pleased with what I brought to the table, I probably wouldn't have children. I'd have just avoided that, like many artists do. You know, they don't want to impose themselves on young people. No doubt. You know, there's the stuff of the mind and the stuff of the spirit. I really approach it like a child, you know. I don't judge it. I don't think there's a good color and a bad color. I don't believe in taste. I think you have to draw yourself to the surface through color, and then you understand what you are. I don't look at it till it's done. I don't think that that's helpful to sort of draw conclusions, mind-based conclusions about what you're making. It's more of an extended trance, the process, and they change. You know, you think you're going somewhere and it takes a turn, and you don't know where you're going, and you have to be available to that. You know, I've had people look at the paintings and say, I'm not going there, because they're too much. Some people are uncomfortable with not knowing. I don't have a problem with that. Tragedy. I mean, it's simply tragedy. But then again, you know, that might be the root, but then it takes on a very healthy, positive life, you know. I think I think for me personally, I've been doing this. I didn't realize this. I've always kept a little book by my palette where I mix colors, since the early 70s. And because thoughts get locked in my head and I don't want them there. I really try to avoid thinking. You know, so I've got these books and books full of painted words. And the reason why I painted them is because I'm a compulsive man, and I thought some of them were important. I thought some of them were meaningful, and so the way I dealt with it is I didn't want to just forget them or consign them to oblivion. I wanted to collect them. This is perfect. You know, it's perfect. It was perfect. It was like the tumbler's locked in. I've got the paper. I got the words. You know, and so I started painting simple things like, you know, always chasing chance. I mean, chance is a part of how I work. It's a part of what I think about. It's like a religion to me. I love words. I mean, words are very powerful. I had a friend come out recently who I've known all my life, and he told me that these made him very uncomfortable, and I've heard that before. I think, you know, number one, they're punishing to read, and I'm sorry about that. They're now becoming paintings. You know, they're becoming paintings. And actually, the mark, the letter, it's a ruse to get you touching the surface, because that's when you let go of reason altogether. And this is what I like to do, is massage surfaces with liquids. It's what I do. I don't like poetry. I can't read it. No, I tried, because people were saying, hey, you're a poet, you know, so I went to Barnes & Noble. I went to the poetry section. And I started opening up books, and I found it hard to concentrate on getting through them, because they were all about something. Images start to matter. You know, if you read the paper, you're going to be inundated with brutal imagery. And part of this, for me, is processing some of this brutal imagery. So the way I paint imagery is to just paint the letters. And that's just how it works for me. These are two ongoing components that you've got to come to terms with if you're going to be in this world as a presence. Otherwise, you're hiding. So my way of sort of understanding the world I'm living in, part of it is to look at these words that are being used and contemplate them. I'm at home. I am at home. I don't know that it was always that way, but I think I'm at home. I'm comfortable with myself. And I'm approving as well, which is a grace in itself. I know the right time to pick colors, phone goes off the hook, nobody's home, and I go in there and it's just, I just start boom, 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 boom. It's magic in a weird way. I mean, or it's an enigma. It defies reason. And I do this because when I'm painting, when I'm touching that surface, I don't want to be thinking. I really protect that space very carefully. These things they're like transportation devices. You know, they really do take you far into places of grace and conflict as well. But actually, you know what I think? The painting for me is a tool for learning. That's where I go to. It's like going to school. Never ending. Infinity brought home. But the moment I touch the surface, it wouldn't matter if I'm working on the circle or the words. It's something about, and I started this when I was a child. I mean, I remember I was probably 6. I started drawing things that were in the backyard, bugs, whatever I thought was beautiful. And when I touched the surface, something happened. It was like I opened a door and went to another place. It changes time. For me, I always thought it was like extending time. It's like holding on to life. But at the same time, you're letting go. It's a curious place. But so the answer would be that whether it's a circle or the words, the moment I'm touching the surface, this thing happens, where I'm liberated from the gravity. I'm just going to call it the mundane, let the chips fall where they may. I think about sometimes painting as if you've got one thing to leave behind, what's the message? And mine is a fairly ecstatic message, you know. And of course, color is a huge part of what I do. And I'm very, very interested in color. I met this guy one time. He was an Israeli soldier, and I met him at a bar in a bowling alley. The only time he felt alive was in battle. And I would say that the time I feel most alive is when I'm painting. The circle has no top or bottom or sides. It has no landscape space. It's simply moving at you or back. And in that sense, I think it's a more direct conversation. You don't have to think. You simply absorb the message, which is very forceful. I think it's a powerful conversation. I think you could drop a circle in an Aboriginal culture or go to Haiti, put it almost anywhere. I think they're very democratic, very global. You know, it's a conversation. It's not about being American or being white or being a male or being rich or being unhappy. It trumps all that stuff. I have tried to explain this to very intelligent people before, and they have fallen asleep in my presence. I can tell you my best answer would be it's intuitive, and it changes from day to day. And I think color is probably the language of the heart, which is tricky, because when you're working on a big painting that takes months, you know, I remember I was working on a huge circle years back, and while Bush was looking for weapons of mass destruction, I was listening to National Public Radio, and the palette kept getting darker and darker, and I realized if I didn't turn off National Public Radio, I'd have an 11-foot black dot. You know? So that's, you know, that informs the colors. You know, colors are like weather for me. You know, it's just a constantly changing thing. And I don't make any pretense to know about color at all. I just love it. I'm not a master. I'm just a fan, a devotee. I find myself in color. If painting is a way of locating yourself, then color's how I know what I am. This is all a self-portrait. So you're looking at me, and that's what it is.